We are in this phase of negotiation to get a good deal for Canadians. But at the same time, the real message I have is really we want our Ontario friends to pay their fair share. So as they have always done.
Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne there pinning the future of a massive Ontario electric vehicle battery plant on the province's shoulders. When it was announced last year, the deal for Stellantis to build a plant in Windsor, Ontario was the biggest auto investment in Canadian history. It's since, however, been eclipsed by Volkswagen's battery plant coming to St. Thomas, Ontario. That deal was announced this year after Joe Biden brought in big business subsidies in the U.S. The feds put up $13 billion to nab Volkswagen as a result. Now, Stellantis wants more for its plant, and those negotiations are very much playing out in public, with the company shutting down most construction yesterday, saying the feds are not living up to their commitments. And what's ensued since is a whole lot of finger-pointing, with thousands of jobs hanging in the balance. Let's take the issue to the front bench. With me tonight, former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant. He's the CEO of Space Canada. Former Conservative Industry Minister James Moore is now a senior business advisor with Dentons. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is with us, as is the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Hi, everybody. Great to have you with us this evening.
Vassy.
Appreciate you making the time. James, I'm going to start with you because, like we said in the introduction, you were industry minister for this country for a number of years. How big of a deal is it from where you sit if this deal ends up falling through?
Catastrophic. Look, Stellantis has a market cap of $47 billion. They had a profit last year of $17 billion. But the federal government has been strutting around very proud of their accomplishments in this space. And if this falls apart, it's Stellantis that says it's the federal government that hasn't done their job. It's the mayor of Windsor who says it's the federal government that hasn't done their job. And Stellantis has a lot of other challenges in front of them. They just recalled 220,000 Jeeps because of problems. They have a big negotiation coming up with the UAW in the United States. They have to repurpose a plant in Illinois where the UAW is expecting them to hire back 2,300 workers. They have an existing EV plant in Indiana. Windsor would be the second one, but it reports that they're looking at a third one in partnership with BMW and Panasonic. So if the federal government, provincial government, don't get their story straight and don't get this back on track, Stellantis will move. They have other priorities, other needs, and other expectations on their company that have to be addressed immediately. And if the federal government doesn't get its act together and not try to play the blame game here with Ontario, they're going to lose this investment.
Rob, you and your colleagues at the Star were the first to report that this deal was kind of on the fritz late last week. Help me understand. I get that there would be negotiations between the province and the feds about who pays what and when in the lead up to any big deal like this one. What I don't understand is why it's happening after the fact, a year after they made the announcement, right in the public eye.
Well, I mean, the problem for the federal government is the provincial government is giving the same amount of money to Volkswagen. They gave $500 million for infrastructure, and as they gave to Stellantis, $500 million. And the provincial government, Premier Doug Ford's government, is saying, look, the fighting the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, that's a federal responsibility. That's not our problem. So they're not going to give any more money, as far as I can see, toward this plant, because they've already matched the Volkswagen subsidy. It's the Volkswagen subsidy that came after Biden's Inflation Reduction Act that is causing so many problems for the federal government. And I think part of the problem, frankly, is that Minister Champagne was talking so much about this $13.2 billion potential subsidy over 5 years. It may be $8 billion. I don't know why. I never understood why the federal Liberal government was speaking about this as in the heftiest possible terms, unless they just wanted a big fat number out there. I mean, the IRA pays, I think it's about $4,500 US per battery produced at one of these factories. That is a huge subsidy to match. They want to make 1 million of these batteries, Vassy, at the Volkswagen plant every year, and they want to make 400,000 of them every year in the Stellantis plant in Windsor. So that's a lot of public money going out the door. So I don't even know if the federal government in Canada will be able to match the IRA for the Windsor facility. They may have to settle for something halfway between what Volkswagen got and what Stellantis was getting before.
Well, I think the question is, Brian, whether Stellantis will settle for that, right? My understanding is that the advanced manufacturing credit within the IRA is worth about $1 to $2 billion a year for a company like Volkswagen or for Stellantis. Now that the details of Volkswagen are public, in what world is it in Stellantis' interest to say, you know what, it's okay, we'll take half of that and we'll just stay here because you guys seem really nice?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of moving pieces. I agree with you that that's probably not going to happen. One thing I find a bit odd, though, is that Stellantis is basically saying, well, we're stopping. We're not going to construct anymore because we got assurances from the federal government, and those assurances haven't happened. We need a signed contract. That feels a bit weird to me, only because it seems to me if you're going to be investing hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars in construction so far, why would you not have it all in writing? And if there was a bit of a change midstream because of the IRA and the federal government trying to deal with that, which is obviously not easy for them to do, right? Obviously, I think Stellantis would probably have appreciated when that assurance came out, why that would have been in writing right away. So that's the first thing that I find kind of weird. A bit bizarre for such a large amount and such a significant deal. The second thing I'd say, I think the Ford government, although I agree with Rob's ultimate conclusion, I think the Ford government is probably getting away with it from a comms point of view of saying, well, we're investing the same amount that we invested for Volkswagen. That's probably pretty easy for people to understand and probably a pretty poignant point. I think the feds are probably saying to themselves, yeah, but you invested that money and we invested a chunk of change too, and now we have to give them more. So whether it's the same amount with Volkswagen or not, your initial amount should be increased because we now have to sort of match what's going on with the IRA and sweeten the pot for Stellantis because of some assurances that weren't written down apparently. But anyways, I digress with that. And the third thing is obviously there's a bit of a blame game here, which is I don't think either one of the parties are going to let this deal go away. I don't think, although James makes a lot of good points, I think Stellantis has pretty much put a lot of capital into this already. And if they are going to get the subsidies ultimately, I think they'll probably want to continue. The Feds certainly don't want to lose this deal, and I wouldn't think the government of Ontario would either. So a little bit of a game of chicken. And I think somebody's going to cave at one point. Probably everybody wants to see over the next few news cycles who's going to win the sort of blame game, and then we'll see some people move.
Tom, can we talk about the politics of it for a second? The three ridings in and around this plant, one's held by the NDP, one by the Conservatives, and one by the Liberals. Both the provincial government and especially the federal government have predicated their economic brand on landing a deal like this or Volkswagen, right? We're building the economy of the future. Here's the proof point, this big plant and now this big plant. If half of that equation falls off, what does it do to that proof point and ultimately the brand they're able to sell Canadians?
Well, there's one thing that's working in the government's favor is that we're at very high employment levels right now across Canada. So this idea of saying, well, this is, you know, so many thousands of new jobs, it would have been far more important if we were in the middle of a cycle of high unemployment, which we're not. The other thing that the average Canadian is allowed to know politically is what's in this deal. I mean, we've just talked about it, you know, around this panel saying, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. What we finally got in the Volkswagen case was an indication of exactly what the Canadian government had put on the table. That's what's missing here. I mean, we've gone from a handshake to a shakedown. Oh, well, we're just going to leave if we don't get more because all of a sudden the Americans have come up with something that didn't exist at the time we signed this thing, and now we want proportionally the same amount as Volkswagen. Not an unreasonable position, by the way, if the government is in the process of just giving away taxpayers' money without thinking. But at the base of it, you have to be asking yourself, well, how is it possible for the Canadian government to say that we're going to be spending $4,000 per battery? And that for how long? And so 13 some odd billion in the case of Volkswagen, and proportionally what, 7? 8 in the case of Stellantis, and they're walking away from presumably a deal because, as was correctly said, they're not building this thing if they don't have something in writing. And I'm sure that the people who put together the Canadian government's contract remembered to put in very severe penalty clauses to avoid exactly this type of extortion. I think that the whole thing stinks the way it's being presented right now. I think that the average Canadian looks at this and says, we like the jobs, we don't mind the investment, we think that the government has a role to play in this sort of strategy to go to the new economy, move away from fossil fuels. But both of these plants are going to have all of their electricity, or the bulk of it, because there's lots of wind farms and solar in the area. But that doesn't really give you the power that you need for one of these plants. That's all going to come by burning fossil fuels. So much for saying that this is moving away from the production of GHGs. It will produce more GHGs. So none of that's been on the table. We don't know what's in the deal, and I think that that's really the biggest problem that we're facing here. Doug Ford has played this brilliantly, I think. He's got look, I'm matching. You can't say that it's my fault. Poilievre has been very clever, simply saying, I'd like the parliamentary budget officer to look at this so we can get an objective view, because he doesn't want to get caught saying that he's against it, which is what he had started saying in the case of Volkswagen. But overall, Vassy, I think that that's what's missing. Transparency on the part of the government. Give Canadians enough of an idea of what's going on, and then we can properly judge the behavior of Stellantis, which until somebody proves it otherwise, has been just awful in this thing. It is a shakedown in my view.
Okay.